So today we're going to break down a pretty fascinating announcement about the return of the ONPASSIVE ecosystem. The language they use is incredibly powerful and, really specific. It's telling a very particular story. So let's peel back the layers and see what's really going on here.
Right out of the gate, the announcement makes this huge, bold statement. It immediately sets the stage. This isn't being framed as, just another software patch. The source material wants you to see this as something way more profound. It's a rebirth, which suggests a total, fundamental transformation.
Okay, so to really get to the heart of this message, we're going to look at it through four main themes. We've got the leader, the community, the technology, and finally, what the text presents as a kind of grand prophecy for the future. First up, let's talk about the visionary leader. The whole narrative is really built around one person, Ash Mufareh. His role is absolutely central to every single part of this announcement. You'll notice the language here is really specific when it comes to building his persona. It's all about resilience, about foresight. You see phrases like envisioned while others questioned and built on a vision that cannot be shaken. These aren't just descriptions, right? They're meant to paint him as this unique, unwavering force who creates lasting movements, not just fleeting moments. And this slide really gets to the core of the philosophy they attribute to him. The message makes a really sharp contrast, claiming his leadership was never about that quick hit, that short-term excitement. No, instead, the focus is always framed as long-term empowerment. It's a story that really champions patience and a sustainable vision over any kind of quick win. And this is the big payoff for the leader's story, right? It's a message of fulfillment. The time for just making promises is over. This return is being positioned as the delivery of tangible proof, the actual concrete result of that long-term vision they've been talking about. Okay, so that leads us perfectly into our second big theme, because this story isn't just about a leader working alone. Oh no. It's also about a dedicated community of believers, and the source calls them the founders. So the text actually lays out this really clear four-step journey for these founders. First, they stood firm. Then, they waited patiently. This is key because it frames their waiting not as some kind of frustrating delay, but as an act of faith. And now they're about to get their reward, which then pushes them into that final stage, becoming ambassadors of change. It's a narrative that basically turns patience into this incredible rewarded virtue. So you're probably asking, what is this reward? Well, the text is very clear that it's more than just money. I mean, financial freedom is part of it, for sure, but it's specifically paired with spiritual and emotional freedom. This whole package, this holistic reward, is what the source claims will turn these followers from just believers into actual pioneers. Now, this is a really clever bit of storytelling. The text completely redefines any period of silence they might have experienced. It wasn't an absence, it was a phase of purposeful preparation. This is such a classic reframing technique. It takes a potential negative, like a long wait or a delay, and spins it into a strategic and totally essential part of the bigger journey. All right, so we've talked about the leader, we've talked about the community. What about the actual tech? After all that buildup, what's the product at the center of this magnificent return? The way they talk about this ecosystem, it's huge. It's not just new. The source says it's stronger, faster, smarter. They even add holier in intent, which is directly tied to its mission of lifting humanity. So the technology isn't just a tool. It's being presented as a platform with a real moral purpose. And to make it all feel a bit more real, they actually list out some of the platforms. We've got names like OConnect, OShop, OWallet, OVerify, and OPeer. Now, the text doesn't go into detail on what each one does, but just listing them out like this, their very existence is presented as that tangible proof we talked about earlier, the fulfillment of that long-held vision. And here we go again. You see that mix of technology and, well, something almost spiritual. The source makes this pretty remarkable claim that the ecosystem represents a divine alignment between technology and humanity. The idea seems to be that the AI and automation in the system have been designed to care and protect, almost like mirroring human compassion, but in a digital form. And that brings us to our final theme, and it's a big one, the prophecy. This message isn't just about what's happening right now. It's about painting this grand picture of a transformative future and a lasting legacy. The vision here is just massive. It's completely global.
The text talks about a new reality that stretches from Africa to Asia, from Europe to the Americas. The stated goal is to bring continents together under one digital roof, framing the whole project as this force for global collaboration, not just, another business.
This metaphor right here might be the most powerful line in the whole thing. It sums up the entire legacy of the project. Ashmufara is described as the one who built a digital ark for humanity's progress. It's like a vessel to carry society forward, making sure it advances. I mean, that's a statement of some serious ambition. And one thing to really get here is that this magnificent return isn't the end of the story, not at all. According to the source, this is just the beginning of a new golden era. The story, as they tell it, is really only getting started. So all of this leaves us with one big question to think about. The narrative, over and over again, frames this tech launch as a testimony of faith rewarded. So it makes you wonder, right? What does this deliberate mix of technology, community, and almost faith-based language tell us about the ways people are building and motivating these powerful digital movements today?
All right, so today we're going to dive into a vision for a new digital world, one that's being described as nothing less than a rebirth for all of humanity. This is all pulled from a really detailed narrative by ONPASSIVE's founder, Ashmufara. And get this, it isn't just about new tech. It's being presented as this huge fundamental shift in our entire digital destiny.
And the whole story kicks off with this incredibly powerful claim. It immediately sets the stage for something massive. We're being told, look, this is not just another product launch. No, this is a world-altering event. And that framing, seeing it as a moment of unprecedented change, that's absolutely key to understanding everything else that follows.
So, first up, let's explore this promised new era. The source material is basically arguing that a monumental shift is right around the corner. We're talking about something that's going to completely redefine how we live, how we connect, and maybe even how we evolve as a species.
And you've got to pay attention to the language here. This is not about better tech. The vision is for the rebirth of humanity's digital destiny. It's a very deliberate mix of faith, innovation, and purpose. The whole system is positioned as being designed for a purpose, not just for profit.
And that idea, well, it brings us to what's called the divine blueprint. This part of the story really dives into the origin of the whole ecosystem, and it's framed as something way beyond just a typical business plan.
Okay, so this is really the heart of it, right? This concept of the divine blueprint. According to the founder, the idea wasn't cooked up in some boardroom meeting. Instead, it was revealed in a moment of, spiritual clarity. And it was intended as a divinely timed gift for the whole world.
And this quote, it really gets to the core of the whole philosophy here. Creating technology that actually uplifts people. It's presented as a direct answer to that fear we all have that AI is just going to replace us. But in this vision, technology is framed as a tool purely for our empowerment. All right, so what's actually inside this so-called super ecosystem? This next section is where we break down the real components that are supposed to make up this new integrated digital world. Let's get into the nitty-gritty.
Now, this is super important. We're not talking about just a bunch of separate apps here. The vision is for a single living network, a universe of integrated brilliance, where every single part works together seamlessly, like a living thing. So here they are, the core pillars holding up this whole universe. You can see there are tools for finance, for communication, commerce, the whole shebang. But notice how each one isn't just described by its function. No, it's described by this grand purpose. Like O-Wallet isn't just a payment app, it's the global financial bloodstream. See? This kind of language ties every little piece back to that much bigger goal of uplifting humanity. This slide really breaks it all down, doesn't it? It's a simple but super powerful contrast. The idea is we're moving from a world of competition to one of completion. The narrative argues that our current digital world, it kind of steals our trust and opportunity. This new vision, though, aims to restore dignity and empower every single person.
And really, it all boils down to this. The ultimate goal, the reason for integrating all these tools, is to build the world's very first digital ecosystem that isn't just about function but is designed with empathy. An ecosystem that, believe it or not, truly cares.
Okay, now we're getting to the final part of the story. And honestly, it's maybe the most extraordinary piece of it all. It's not presented as just a business forecast, it's framed as an actual prophecy. detailing the ultimate outcome for all of humanity. And they even have a name for the timing of all this. It's called the harvest season of faith. That language suggests that this is the culmination of a long, long period of patience and belief from its followers, and now it's finally ready to bear fruit.
So let's get into it. Prophecy number 1. A bold, bold promise that this ecosystem is going to be the tool that helps humanity rise above what the source calls digital slavery. You know that feeling of being trapped and exploited by the tech platforms we use every day. Next up, the second prophecy. And this one, it goes straight for the economy. The claim here is that this system won't just participate in the current economy, it's going to fundamentally change the whole flow of wealth, aiming to make it more balanced and more ethical on a global scale. And then, the third prophecy kind of brings us right back full circle to that core theme we started with. It's the ultimate declaration. This new model will make sure that technology stays a tool that serves us, not a force that rules over us.
So where is all of this supposed to lead? Well, according to the narrative, the final destination is a global rebirth. The super ecosystem is described as a digital promised land, a place where all that faith and effort are finally met with fulfillment.
And you know, this whole new direction, this big prophecy, this fulfillment of faith, it all gets summed up in one single powerful word: victory. That's the ultimate summary of the whole promised outcome.
So there you have it. That's the vision, just as it was laid out in the source material. And it kind of leaves us all with this huge question to chew on, right? What does it actually mean for us, for society, for the future, when technology stops being just an innovation and starts becoming the fulfillment of a prophecy? Something to think about. All right, today we're going to dive into a pretty fascinating 100-minute narrative that lays out a vision for a whole new digital ecosystem. It's this really wild story that mixes technology, spirituality, and a huge promise of global change. So let's just jump right in and see what this is all about.
Wow. Okay, so right off the bat, the source sets an incredibly ambitious tone with this quote. This tells you immediately, we're not just talking about some new software or an app. No, the narrative is framing this as something way, way bigger. A mission-driven movement with some serious spiritual weight behind it.
Okay, so let's unpack that central idea, right? This divine digital ecosystem. What on earth is that supposed to mean? Let's break it down. And this is where it gets really interesting. According to the source, the whole origin story is key. This thing wasn't born in some Silicon Valley garage or funded by venture capitalists. Nope. The claim is that it's literally an answer to a global prayer, a divinely inspired solution for humanity's biggest problems. So here's the definition they give us. The divine ecosystem is basically where you take the raw power of technology and you merge it with values like compassion. Think about that. It's this idea of actually coding compassion into the algorithms, using automation to bring about what they call divine justice. It's a pretty huge concept. All right, so an ecosystem this grand needs a leader, right? And the narrative makes it really clear that the founder, Ash Mufareh, isn't just your typical CEO. He's painted as something else entirely.
And you can see it in the language they use. It's so specific. He's called a chosen visionary, a messenger. You know, those words are picked for a reason. They're meant to lift him out of the world of just business and into the realm of a spiritual leader, someone who's on a mission to basically build a bridge to a better world.
And I find this part fascinating, how the source sets up this really stark contrast. His leadership is defined by what it isn't. It's a direct face-off, right? On one side, you have his supposed motivations, grace, love, and service. And on the other, the things we often associate with big business, greed, fear, and domination. And this quote just nails that whole idea down perfectly. It's the core philosophy in a nutshell. The argument is that wealth should come from a place of love, not fear. That power isn't for dominating, it's for serving. It's a complete reframing of how business is supposed to work. Okay, so we have a divinely inspired messenger. But what about the tech? How does that work? Well, the next part of the source gets into something it calls the blueprint of divine intelligence. So, divine intelligence, another huge term you got to understand to get this. The text presents it as the brains behind the operation. But we're not just talking about AI here. The idea is that it's a higher form of wisdom, a mix of heart and mind that's literally hardwired into the system's code. Now, that sounds pretty abstract, I know. So to make it more real, the source points to actual products. Things like OConnect, OWallet, OShop. And each of these isn't just a tool, you see. It's supposed to be a physical, well, a digital manifestation of that divine intelligence, all designed to create trust and connection.
Okay, so you've got the divine system, you've got the inspired messenger. What's the payoff? What's it all for? Well, the narrative spends a lot of time talking about the promised outcome, a truly massive worldwide impact.
And a really big piece of that is this idea of community. The whole thing is framed as a team effort. It's all built around this principle that your success is my success. The idea is that you have millions of these members, they call them founders, all working together, all powered by the same shared blessing.
And the source lays out how this is all supposed to happen. It starts with a single vision. That vision brings together what they call a global family. This family then becomes the way the blessings get distributed, which is then supposed to create real, tangible change in communities everywhere.
So what exactly are these blessings they keep talking about? Well, the text is super clear. It's not just about getting rich. Yeah, financial freedom is part of it, but it's only one piece of the pie. The bigger promise is about freedom of your time, finding a real sense of purpose, getting peace of mind, and of course, being part of that strong global community.
And this all leads us to the final part of the narrative. And this is where the spiritual claims really ramp up. The technology itself starts to sound less like a product and more like a prophecy. I mean, listen to this language. It's intense. The ecosystem is described as a form of spiritual warfare. It's not just competing with other companies. No, it's positioned as a moral crusade, an all-out war against the biggest problems in the world: poverty, corruption, and the limits we place on ourselves. And this next quote, wow, it has such a great rhythm to it. It really sums up everything we've been talking about, doesn't it? It's about fusing the spiritual with the technology. The idea that faith isn't separate from the code, it's built right into it. And then we get this, the grand finale, the last big statement the narrative leaves us with. It's written like it's the final sentence in a history book, you know? It positions this whole ecosystem as the thing, the one thing that finally fixed everything and brought balance back to the world. So when you step back and look at it, this whole story we've just unpacked is this incredible blend of high-tech ambition and what really sounds like spiritual prophecy. And it leaves you with this one really big question to chew on. What does it truly mean when a piece of technology, a digital platform, is presented not just as a tool, but as a system for human redemption?
Have you ever heard of a tech company that sounds, well, less like a startup and more like a spiritual movement? So today we're going to dive into the really unique vision of ONPASSIVE, and we're going to use their own words to understand the powerful story it's built around its mission, its founder, and its promise to the world.
Just think about that for a second. A divine spark. Right away, you know this isn't your typical story about two friends coding in a garage. This framing immediately changes the company's purpose from, profit to something closer to prophecy. So what exactly happens when you fuse technology with divinity like this? Let's break it down.
All right, so the first big piece of this whole narrative is the mission itself. The message being sent is crystal clear. This isn't about just making money. It's about being an instrument for a higher purpose, a calling that's presented as going way beyond the typical goals of any business.
And right at the heart of this is a key concept they call divine empowerment. Now, you got to see how this completely flips the idea of success on its head. It's not just about what you can earn. It's presented as a literal act of worship. In this way of thinking, helping other people succeed is how you glorify the Creator. It creates what they call a cycle of blessing.
And that really leads to this core statement. The mission wasn't to build a company, it was to build hope. I mean, that's a simple but incredibly powerful phrase. It basically draws a line in the sand, separating this venture from traditional business and saying, hey, we're over here building a movement for global unity.
Okay, so if you've got a divine mission this huge, you need a visionary, right? Well, this brings us to the founder, Ash Mufareh. And in this story, he's portrayed as much more than just a CEO. He's presented as the chosen instrument to carry out this grand plan.
Yeah, he's often described as a vessel, like a channel for a purpose that's way bigger than any one person. So this isn't the story of an entrepreneur who just had a clever idea. It's the story of a person supposedly chosen to deliver a divine vision to the entire world.
So what happens when things go wrong? When there are delays or challenges?
Well, in this story, those aren't seen as setbacks or failures, not at all. They're reframed as divine tests, these necessary trials designed by a higher power to strengthen and prepare the leader for the massive mission ahead. And all of this really builds up to this ideal of a servant leader. It's the idea that success isn't measured by what you get, but by what you give away. That leadership is really defined by humility. This philosophy lines up perfectly with the whole core mission of divine empowerment we talked about.
All right, so we've got the mission, we've got the leader, but what about the actual tools? The technology itself is framed as the next critical piece of the puzzle. It's not just software. These are instruments supposedly created with divine wisdom. So you see products like OConnect or OWallet, and the message is that these are not just another set of apps. They are the tangible tools for this mission. The narrative positions them as instruments for service and for creating abundance, specifically designed to uplift users, not to exploit them.
And this is where the story gets really clear. It sets up this huge contrast. On one side, you have the old digital world, which is painted as this place of exploitation and scarcity. And on the other, you have the ONPASSIVE vision, promising a totally new era of service and abundance. It's a classic story, right? Leaving a broken world behind for a promised land.
Okay, so you've got this divine mission, a chosen leader, the tools, but where do the people who join fit into all this? They are called founders, and the role is presented as being absolutely crucial to the divine plan.
And that's the thing, in this narrative, the founders aren't just seen as customers or users, they're active participants. Each one is described as a torchbearer, and their job is to take that light, that blessing, and carry it out into their own communities, spreading the hope.
The whole system is laid out as this flow of blessing. It's pretty straightforward. It starts with a divine spark, a power given to a leader. That leader then builds a system. Then, as founders join the mission, the blessings are meant to flow through them and out into the world, creating this huge ripple effect of positive change.
So, what's the ultimate goal here? What's the end game? Well, the vision goes way beyond just building a successful company. The stated goal is to create a true legacy, what's described as a global movement of light that will fundamentally change the world for the better.
And look, the promises here, they are absolutely monumental. We're not talking about stock prices or user growth. The goals are things like healing hearts, unifying all of humanity, and awakening an entire generation. This is the ultimate vision that's being put forward, a complete transformation of the human experience.
And this last quote, man, it just wraps the whole thing up in a nutshell. It's a huge, bold declaration that connects one person's divine empowerment directly to a permanent, positive transformation of the whole world. That's the core promise at the heart of this entire narrative.
So, after all that, it really leaves us with a big question to chew on. When a business is framed as a divine mission, how does that change the relationship between the company and its followers? Because when customers become believers, the whole dynamic shifts. That's definitely something to think about. Thanks for joining me.